to Trapani's Choice, episode 15. Your host, Nick Trapani. I'm just wondering, have you guys ever been in that predicament where you tell someone to go, then they tell you to go, and you end up going at the same time? Well, it happened to me tonight. It actually happened while I was driving here. I was driving down the street and I'm waiting to turn right. And on the side of the road, there's a man in a wheelchair. And I'm a nice guy, so I told him to go. He then told me to go. And I'm not going to argue with him.
The second I started accelerating, he started wheeling across the road. I slammed my brakes on and thought, well, I know how you ended up in that fucking chair.
This is the first joke that I ever wrote. Now, I might have written other jokes prior to that, but when I say the first joke that I ever wrote, the first joke that I ever wrote and I performed. Now, I didn't perform it straight away. I don't particularly find the joke funny, but for some reason, it works. Now, I'm going to tell you a little bit about how this joke came about and also how it made it into my set. And I used it for quite a while. It seems to be a great opener. And hopefully from this, you get a little bit of an insight on how I wrote this joke. And if you're into writing jokes or you want to start performing, maybe you can get something out of this to help you write a joke. Something as simple as this one. So I wrote this joke maybe 8 years ago, well before I ever thought I'd get into comedy. I was always working on jokes in my head. As I've told in previous podcasts, when people would sing in the shower, in my mind, they'd be going over routines. I'd be just in my head telling jokes, talking, basically trying to wrap my head around becoming a comedian. And where this story came about is actually a true story. A lot of the times when comedians tell jokes, they are true stories. They're things that happen to us, and we try and pick out what we think is funny from that, or what we can change around to make it into a joke. So I was driving to my friend's place, Dickie, who's been on this podcast before, and this happened. I was waiting to turn into the street. The man in the wheelchair went to come across the road, and I nearly hit him, and I had to slam my brakes on. I spent the rest of the trip driving to Dickie's place thinking about this event, and I found it so ironic that it was funny at that point. Like, I thought, geez, imagine that's how he got in the wheelchair in the first place. And all these different thoughts go through my head. Now, not thinking that it was overly funny, I told this story to Dick, and he was wetting himself laughing. And then I said something along those lines of that punchline. And he was in hysterics. Loved it. Then in going into the, more into the time where I was getting into comedy, he kept telling me I need to use that joke. And I didn't listen to him in the beginning. He kept saying, use the wheelchair joke. It's funny. Use it. And I hadn't really perfected it, so to speak, or hadn't thought about it too much since. It was always there. That joke was always there and whatnot, but never thought about using it because the story happened to me so long ago, and it just seems like it's the most easy punchline you could write. That's why I didn't particularly like it. I think sometimes with comedy, we try and be too clever with what we're writing, and this seems like a very simple joke. So I didn't use it my first few sets. And then I thought, you know what? We have to go with what people tell us. And sometimes what our friends tell us isn't actually accurate when it comes to comedy or maybe singing or anything to do with art, because a lot of the times our friends will tell us that they like it. It might just be that they do like it because they know our personality and that's what they like about it. It's me telling it to them. But a crowd of people who don't know you might necessarily like it. So what I did is I took a bit of a punt and I thought, well, I'm just going to go with this one for a once off and see. And I opened with the joke and it killed. It did amazing. I couldn't have got a better response from that joke. And it still leaves me a little bit stunned that it gets that reaction. But it does. So what I'm getting at is you can use an everyday event, something as simple as that. And so long as you word it correctly. Now remember, a joke is similar to writing a song. What you want to be doing is you want to make sure the words fit in. I generally don't like to swear too much in my sets because I think it's good to be a little bit offensive without swearing as much. That's my personal opinion. I'm okay with swearing. I have no problem with it. It's not like I'm worried about not being able to do a venue because I swear too much or whatnot. It's got nothing to do with that. I just want to be offensive without being offensive for swearing. That's my personal preference. And I think that joke, I've tried to word it several different ways. I think it needs it in that joke. So sometimes it can emphasize the punchline and work quite well. As I said, like being like a song, like the lyrics to a song fit in perfectly with the music. Whereas to me, that wording fits in perfectly. Sure, it can be changed to another word, but I like it like that. It seems to work. So another little thing for you guys, if you're out there and you think, well, writing's not really a strong point of mine. It's not mine either. I've never liked reading and I've never liked writing. My mind works far too fast for my hand to write things down. So I get frustrated. My writing's all scribble. If I look over it, in years to come, it won't make sense to me. So what I like to do is I like to record all my stuff on my phone, either be a video or just on voice recorder. And I can go back to it later and pick it up from there. So there are other ways around things. Some of us out there aren't so good at some things that others are. If writing is a stronger, and you see a lot of comedians sitting there writing away, that's fantastic if you can do that. But know that there's other ways. Be creative with what you're doing. Because if you want something bad enough, you won't let anything get in your way. Something as simple as not being able to writing is not a good enough excuse. So hopefully this has given you a little bit of an insight into writing a small joke that you may one day perform. What you really want to start doing is look at every little thing that happens in the day, any little conversations, and try them with people that you meet, try them with people that you know and you're just having a conversation. Just drop it. Some of my friends have started to work out that I will be trialing jokes when we're talking. It's a great opportunity to do, especially if you're in a group of people and you're in an event or something like that, or a house party. It's a very easy place to start. Now, you might not necessarily get the laugh that you want, but remember, they're not the crowd either that you want. If you get so much as a chuckle, there's something there. There's something to do with that joke. Maybe the timing was off, or maybe you just need to reword it a little bit better. So always use those around you to trial your stuff, maybe before you trial your first ever maybe open mic night, or set wherever you're doing it. Open mic nights are probably the best place to start trialing your material. So I hope you've enjoyed this little insight to the first joke I ever wrote. Now, I'm not saying that it's absolutely amazing or that you have to find it hilarious now. It's completely different when you're performing on stage to when you're sitting in a chair talking. You can't get that same message across. But it gives you a little bit of an idea of the joke, the context of the joke, and also how to put that into wording so it can be funny and be performed. Now, the only thing that I find funny about this joke now is I've performed that set. When I say perform, I've practiced that routine so many times in my house. I've got my microphone and my stand, and I stand there and practice. And everyone is sick of that first line. Do you guys know that predicament where you tell someone to go, then they tell you to go and you end up going at the same time? Everyone around me hates it. So that's also another reason why you'll find comedians necessarily won't find their jokes funny, is because we have practiced the hell out of them. They're no longer funny anymore. It's really just a routine. What is funny is the crowd's reaction. That's what we get out of it. So once again, thank you guys for listening. Make sure you subscribe to my YouTube channel at Trapani's Choice, and also go to my Instagram page and follow us so you don't miss any of our unplugged material. We're also on SoundCloud and Apple Podcasts. So check it out, guys. Our merch store will be open soon, so you'll be able to dress in our Trapani's Choice clothing, and we really appreciate your support. Make sure you leave us a comment down below, even if it's a question, something that you might want to know. We did get a lot of questions last time after the episode of me doing my questions, so I'd love to revisit that in the future to do another episode where we're answering your questions. But once again, ask a question. I'd be more than happy to answer it in a future podcast. So thank you guys for listening, and I really appreciate your support.